Hello, everybody. I know it's been a long day, and we're closing in on the end of it, but I was honored when Spencer asked me to speak and say a few words. Really appreciate Agriculture Alliance and everybody who's here. Always love coming to this event. So today I wanted to talk about, well, I have something I want to talk about right away. I didn't talk to Spencer about this or any of the people. But I have a secret to tell you, which is that professional wrestling is fake. I don't know if anybody didn't know that. Maybe he didn't know it. Mark didn't know it. Mark didn't know it. But I assume most of you did know it. Most of you were aware. And once you know that, you can never unsee it. And you see the pull punches, you see the blood packets. You start to see it for what it really is. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm not going to talk about agronomy like John Kemp, because I don't know agronomy like John Kemp. And if you wanted me to give that session, it would not go incredibly well. But I am going to talk to you about marketing and being remarkable in the industry and what it takes to do that. So the truth of the matter is we have mostly unremarkable marketing. This picture here is an example of that. This is what most people see when they see most of the products in agriculture. You don't really know why you're choosing them. You don't really know what the purpose of choosing them is. There's no distinction. There's no difference. We have commoditized ourselves to death in ag. And unfortunately, we're dealing with the repercussions of that, right? Which is we are in a race to the bottom. And the problem with the race to the bottom is that you might win. And a lot of us are winning that race right now. We're winning that race in lower prices, lower margins. And so what I want to talk to you about today is how we can reverse that trend. And one of the ways that we can do that is through being remarkable. And I can't necessarily give you a map, because if I could, then I could just replace you with a robot. But I can talk to you about some of the observations that I've seen in the industry for what works. How you can stand out, how you can be different. So I want to talk to, I like to tell stories as we're talking through this, and so does this clicker work, Jordan? Okay, perfect. I'd like to talk through a couple of different stories for what it looks like to be remarkable and what that actually takes. What are the processes, what are the steps, and who are people who have done this in the past. So if anybody knows who this is a gentleman named David Sarnoff. And David Sarnoff, in the 1920s, was working for RCA, which is the Radio Corporation of America. Radio was in its infancy at the time. There really wasn't anything super exciting about it. You mostly got your news. You mostly just went on there for news. There were some those stories that they used to do way back in the day. But that was really few and far between. At most of the time, it was news, and it was a really expensive box. So RCA came out and said, you want to pay a lot of money for this really expensive news box in your living room? And most Americans said, no. No, we don't want a super expensive news box. And why? Well, because there's 12 newspapers in town, and each of them costs a penny a day. So why do I need your expensive news box? Because most Americans at the time did not have a news problem. And so this is the first thing that I'd like to talk about, is that we have to identify the problem that our customers have. And what RCA did is the same thing that a lot of us do today in the industry, whether we're farmers or whether we're ag tech founders in the room. A lot of us go and say, we built this really cool thing. We built this really cool product. We really want to talk to you about it because we're super excited about it, and you should be excited about it too. And we can't figure out why you're not excited about it. And if you're not excited about it, then you're an idiot. You don't understand it, and we can't figure out why it is that you're not going to buy. But the truth of the matter is, if the customer doesn't think it's different, if the customer doesn't think it's interesting, it's not different. The customer is right, and you're wrong. And that's something that I think we need to get more and more comfortable with saying in agriculture. So back to David Sarnoff. There was an interesting thing happened in 1921. Something fascinating happened. There was a fight between Jack Dempsey and George Cartier, Frenchman. And this is like the fight of the century. This is back when boxing was like a big deal. I don't know if there's any boxing fans here. Boxing isn't what it used to be. But this was a big time for boxing. And so this is like the fight of the century. It's promoted all over the place. It's going to happen in New Jersey. And so David Sarnoff goes to his bosses at RCA and says, hey, look, the radio sales are really down, really slow. We can't figure out what to do. We can't figure out why people aren't going to buy this because they really hadn't figured it out yet. And so I propose that we air this fight on the radio. And his bosses said, shut up, David. No, that's not what we do here. We make radios that are really good, and we sell them to people. We don't produce the content. And so he went away, and he came back again, and fought again over and over again to his bosses until finally they said, fine, but you have to go figure this out. You get no resources, go figure out what to do with this. And so what David Sarnoff did is he went away, he hired somebody, the first broadcaster of all time, to talk about the boxing match as it was happening. He went and stole, this is rare for New Jersey, this is not the first time somebody has been stolen in New Jersey, but he stole a radio transmitter from a local army base in New Jersey, and then he went to he took that to the boxing match, and they produced the first aired radio broadcast of the fight. And you know, people were clamoring to get into this event. People really wanted to go, but there's only so much space to get to, you know, the actual fight. You know, a lot of people weren't able to go. A lot of people weren't geographically able to go. They had a job. They had to be someplace else. And so what David did before, as he was building up the audience for this, is he really looked at, well, how do I get all these radios? So he went to the sales reps, and he said, put a radio in every pool hall, every bar, every tavern, every diner around the Northeast United States, and we're going to project this fight into those places. And so they did, and it turned out that on the day of the fight, actually 300,000 people heard this fight for the first time, and it totally transformed the way people thought about the radio. Totally changed the way that they thought about it. Totally, their understanding went from this is a news box in my living room to this is an experience machine, and that made the price evaporate. Right, like the price was no longer the conversation. They understood this in a new way. And so one of the things that we see about creating remarkable products is there has to be a moment where there's a reframing of the value of the product. There's a reframing of the way that we're going to the way that we should be valuing this product from the customer's perspective. So we help the customer understand why this is different, why this is unique. And to go back, we know this is a principle, not just because of David Sarnoff, but you go back 150 years, and one of my favorite examples of this is a gentleman named James Watt. Does anybody know, are there any engineering nerds in here who know who James Watt is? Yale knows? All right, so James Watt, he didn't invent the steam engine, but he was one of the early sellers of the steam engine. And he went to mine owners at the time, this is back in the late 1700s, and he went to the mine owners and he said, I can replace your horses to drain your mines with a steam engine. And the owners and then he talked to them about, you know, carburetor size and how exciting the machinery was and the equipment was and all the different things that they were going to be able to do now with this new piece of equipment. And most of the mine owners said, no, we have that problem solved. There's nothing interesting about this to us. And so he went away and took a step back and said, what do these people want to know? And he came to the answer of what they want to know is the mine owners want to know how many horses they can get rid of if they buy this machine. And so he invented a metric that we still use today, which is horsepower. So he developed horsepower. It was actually a marketing term originally. And this is the second thing that I want to talk about today, is that first there's a reframing, and second, part of that reframing has to be, we have to give people a metric by which to measure success. And one of the biggest problems we have, whether we're talking about on our farm, or whether we're talking about in our agricultural businesses of all kinds, we don't give people a good metric for knowing whether they succeeded or not, right? We use lots of different proxies, but yield is the one that is actually a result of really effective seed marketing that was done in the 1980s and all the way through to today. But you know, yield is the biggest metric, but we have to try to find different metrics, different ways to value the thing that we're growing, the thing that we're developing, the thing that we're building. So how can we go about doing that and reframing people's understanding and then giving them a metric by which to measure whether they succeeded or not? I hope that doesn't play anyway. The next thing that I want to talk about, the next story I want to tell is about a gentleman from my home state of Minnesota. We love him in Minnesota, even though he left Minnesota on purpose. We just love him because we are gluttons for punishment in Minnesota. That's why we live in Minnesota. He's a gentleman named Bob Dylan. And you've probably heard of him before, but Bob Dylan came up in the folk music scene in New York and was becoming more and more popular. Couldn't go anywhere. I don't know if you guys have watched any of the new movie that just came out on Bob Dylan, so it's a good movie, A Complete Unknown. But anyway, there's a lot of, basically he became extremely effective. And one of the things that he did was in like 1965, I believe, he went to one of the folk music festivals, and he decided to bring an electric guitar. Now, Bob Dylan had risen as the folk music hero. He'd been the voice of a generation up until this point. Like everybody wanted to hear what Bob Dylan had to say, as long as he was singing folk music. And so one of the other things that I want to talk about in agriculture right now, that's currently going on, is in ag, we have developed and become very good at doing the things that we've always done. But we're really not super good at trying new things and innovating and stepping into the new. And so one of the reasons for that is because we have a fear of failure. So alongside this story, I'm going to bookend this story and in the middle of it, talk a little bit about Alexander Graham Bell. Alexander Graham Bell obviously built the first telephone, but he went to Western Union. Western Union was the telegraph company at the time. Telegraph was dominant. It was successful. It was well established. You could send a telegraph across the country. You knew exactly when it would show up. It was expensive, but you always knew it was going to be there. So one of the problems that we have in agriculture is what I call the Western Union problem. We say it can never fail. It always has to work. It must be perfect. And if it fails, we're out. We're not interested anymore. We're moving on to the next thing because I only have 40 seasons, right? We have a lot of these things that we say, which are true things that are absolutely true, but they become these dogmatic principles that we then live our lives by and run our businesses by, which I think limit us in a lot of different ways. We say it always has to work. So when Alexander Graham Bell came to Western Union and he said, I can make a phone call and move across the room, Western Union said, well, who cares? Like, we don't care about that. We're not interested in it because this doesn't even compare at all to the distances that we can travel, the distances that we can make the communication. There's no reason that we should play with this toy. They call it a toy. That's documented. They called it a toy. And by the time that Alexander Graham Bell came back, he improved the coils and improved the network and brought it onto the market. Western Union was playing catch up, and they lost their patent lawsuit to him because they tried to catch up and tried to outcompete him. And so one of the things that I want to talk to you about here today is that we have to be willing to fail in agriculture. And I know that's not a super popular thing to do, but we have to be willing to just take a step out. And that goes for the founders who seem much more confident in failing, to be honest with you. If I'm talking to my fellow farmers in here, we as farmers are very apprehensive to try anything that might not work. And I think we need to get a little bit more comfortable taking reps at things that might not work, might pan out, might be successful. So taking that step out and knowing that we're going to take some licks. And so I want to talk about this event here. This is at the music festival. Bob Dylan decided to play his guitar, and he comes out, and I don't know if this is going to play. Hold on. It should play. No. There it is. All right. So he goes out, and the first thing that the sound's not going to play, but the first thing that he hears on this video is somebody yells, "Judas." And if any of us were, like, if you guys were shouting that at me right now, I'd probably just go sit down. I'd be like, you know what, like, screw this, I don't need this. I'm gonna go sit down, it's not worth it. But like, to believe, as we're taking those risks, as we're looking at it, taking calculated risks, doing things that are somewhat unpopular, I want to encourage everybody here to do things like that, to step out, to take a little bit of risk, because if nothing can fail, then nothing can succeed. And that's the ultimate truth. In today's market, we really, really want to be comfortable. We want to be right in the middle. We really love the middle of this graph. You guys have probably seen this adoption curve before. Jeffrey Moore popularized it in his book, Crossing the Chasm, but it's actually based on diffusion theory that came out of the 1930s corn hybrid trials here in Iowa. And so the tech industry tried to take it over, but it actually started in agriculture, so I think we should reclaim it. This is the adoption curve, and this is what it looks like. You got your early adopters on the left, and you got your late laggards on the right. The people on the left are those people who stood for iPhones in the snow and in the rain, and the people on the right are the ones with a VCR that still works. I don't know if everybody in here, but but that would be the laggards. And the truth about this is that for some reason we try to go through the meat of this. We try to go right for the middle, because if you look at this, you're like, yeah, that's where most of the people are. But we never start with the left. We have to start with the left. We have to be remarkable and meaningful. A meaningful specific, in the words of Zig Ziglar, a meaningful specific, not a wandering generality. What most of our companies, what most of our farms have become are wandering generalities that make lots of money for other people and none for us. And if we're going to make more money as farmers and as ag tech founders, we're going to need to become more specific about who we help, who we're serving, and how we're going to do that. Like, who are the people that you serve? Who are the people that you actually help? Who are the people whose lives you're improving? And it has to start on the left, and that has to start with people who are die-hard, passionate fans. I talked last night a little bit in our brief Q&A session about how, with the founders, about how what we really want to do in that early stage is be in on a secret together with our early customers. I don't know if any of you guys have ever done a CSA locally, but we started one in our town of Northfield, and we started a little tiny food market for our local neighbors. And it felt like when you start something like that, it was weird. First of all, it kind of felt like it was against the law, because like nobody was doing it, and it was weird, like strange thing to do. All my neighbors are corn and soy farmers, and they were like, all right, freak, what are you doing? And but we started it, and we were in on a secret together with our early customers. We were part of a conspiracy, and building that type of community helps you get through that early stage. It helps you figure that out. It helps you figure out what it is that you need to do, what are the ways that you need to serve those people. So be in on a secret with your early customers. And then you will move to the right? And then you will move to the right. And the way that you move to the right is not because of you. It's because of what people say about you. So don't take out ads in Farm Journal, right? That's not the way to become super successful. Sorry, I don't know if there's anybody from Farm Journal here, but if you're offended by that, we can talk afterwards. But I think after working with 50 different ag tech startups now and watching some of them spend lots of money with Farm Journal, I can say that it's not a super successful strategy unless you have a really specific meaning or reason to be there. And so the problem is a lot of us try to figure out where to be before we figure out why to be there. Why are we there? What message are we trying to spread? So I had a very, very successful board member, I won't say his or her name, but somebody was having a conversation with me a long time ago. We were sitting on a board together for an ag tech company. And this person said to me, Dan, what do you think about field science? Like, we really like field science. What are your feelings on field science? I was like, yeah, like field science, I'm supposed to answer that question because I'm the marketer in the room, I guess. I was like, well, okay, but field science are great. Everybody does them. So that's not unique, but okay, we can do it. But the question I asked was, okay, so say we put a field sign out for this particular product that we were working on in the field, and somebody drives up to the farmer's place afterwards and says, yeah, so you got, XYZ company's field sign there. What does that company do? And I was like, now we pause and we say, what is it that comes next after that? Because we have, most companies who are throwing their crap out there, none in here, okay? But none in here, but lots of companies in industry, when they're actually pushing out all their messages, they don't think about how that message is going to spread. They don't build it or design it to spread. And so the question is, what is that person going to say about you? And you have to design that. You have to design that. David Sarnoff didn't just start NBC, because that's what came out of the RCA partnership there. Didn't just start NBC because he was looking for a new gig or anything like that. He did it because there was an audience to serve. That's why it was successful. That's why it worked. And so we have to think backwards about this, about how what we're trying to do for our customers, what difference we're going to try to make for them, and then why this is important to them. What problem, specifically, what problem are we going to solve uniquely well that nobody else can solve? The next example of this is Red Bull. I don't know if does anybody have a Red Bull today? This is always interesting when I say this. Okay, so Red Bull, I don't know if you guys know this, but in the drinks market, soft drink market, nobody has come close to Coca-Cola in years and years and years. And if you were to take let's just say a McKinsey consultant, the McKinsey consultant you were to say to them, what would be the way to compete with Coca-Cola? That McKinsey consultant would probably come back with something super logical, because that's McKinsey, and they would say something like, the best thing to do is to make something that tastes better than Coke, comes in a larger can than Coke, and costs less than Coke, and you're going to win. You're going to dominate that market. The only product to come close to taking any of Coca-Cola's market share over the last 20 years, 50 years really, is Red Bull. And Red Bull comes in a smaller can, twice the price, and it tastes like piss. Just being honest. And that's not even me. That's not even me. Actually, I know we have farm trial people in here. In the early trials, the taste test company said, turn back to Dietrich Mateschitz, who's the CEO of Red Bull, and they said, Dietrich, you have a real problem here. We've never, ever had this negative of a response to a drink. People that said, we would not take money to drink this stuff. It's so bad. And yet, it's a multi-billion-dollar company today. And so Dietrich moved forward, and they were able to succeed in spite of what people said. And so I take that not to discount what people are saying or what people are doing, because that's really important. We're not throwing every caution to the wind or throwing everything out the window, but it is important to remember that if you truly believe in what you're doing, if you are truly adding value to your customers' lives, if you're changing something for them, you have the unique ability to persevere with that. And I would just encourage you to continue doing that, continue looking for opportunities to do that. So the last thing I want to talk about here, and then I'll break, and if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them on the fly here. But this is a video of a bike race, and I think this is a really good analogy for agriculture today. So this guy is in last place in the bike race right now. I'll just step across this quick. And he's in last place in the bike race, and everybody's pedaling as hard as they can in the same way. And he realizes that he needs to play a different game. He realizes that they're all playing the wrong game. And so you'll see he comes up with a new way to bike that happens to be outrageously successful. All these other guys are puffing away, trying to work as hard as they can to bike the same old way that they've always biked. And here's somebody who tries something different and ends up winning. He might kill himself. That's the risk, Tim. No, I'm just kidding. So he passes everybody. Let's speed this up a little bit. but he speeds fast to everybody. And here's the next thing, I want you guys to watch this. What ends up happening here is that you start to attract people, people will copy you. You'll have copycats. If you're successful, you'll have copycats. That's the thing to remember about this. And also, this doesn't last forever. What you decide to do today, that new thing, that new innovation, that new project that you're bringing on your farm, it's not going to last forever. You're going to have to start pedaling again. And then you get to try it all over again, which is exactly the joy of what we get to do. So, make something different, make people care, and make fans, not followers. With that, I'll break.